Okay, right. So we're going to start the chat. This is a great chat for me because there were two people who I started this new Better Up journey with. So it's a great time for us to catch up. We survived it to 10 months, so we're both all here and enjoying this ride. And just to find out a bit more about the theme is transition. So we all started a new job at the same time and how we've been maintaining our mental fitness during that period. So I'm joined by Erin and Brian. You guys want to do quick intros? Erin, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. Hi, even though you know me. I'm Erin McClintock. I'm here at Better Up. I've been here 10 months. I'm about to step into the role of Director of Learning Experience Design. So transition within a transition. Let's see. I'm based in Massachusetts. My journey to get here was a pretty interesting one. I started my career as a therapist, moved into the tech space about 7 years ago, and then spent the last 7 years at the same company leading the organization's impact work in mental health, wellness, and social emotional learning. I had the chance to use Better Up, decided to come over to Better Up because I really believed in the mission and the brand, and was a firsthand, had the power to experience what it was all about. And yeah, so now I'm here. Blessed to work with both of you guys.
Cool. I like that transition within a transition. So the
I
talk comes
know.
at the right time.
That's very true.
Brian, you want to go?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's very meta, Aaron's transition within the transition experience right now. So definitely great timing. Yes. So since we're all cohorts, I am also at Cohort Buddies. I'm also work at Better Up. I support the business operations for our behavioral science team. So I'm really focused on how our team is organized to win, from strategy to planning, strategic projects, forecasting, to execution and administrative work. Prior to joining Better Up, I spent a lot of time in the healthcare consulting space. So I was focused on health and benefits, and then supporting pharma and life science companies through business advisory services. And then I spent the last 2 years before joining Better Up building DE&I and social impact structures for some of our clients and for the firm I was working with. So interesting route to get here, but loving Better Up, learning a lot, and excited to discuss transitions with you both.
Okay. Thank you guys for that introduction. Erin, I didn't actually know that you started off as a therapist. So learning something every day.
Yeah. Did my grad degree in psych and then worked in community mental health and K-12 mental health, working with middle school students, high school students, and then ultimately moved into the higher ed space, which is where I really that's my population of people I love to work with.
Okay, that's cool. So we're going to be talking about mental fitness, and I'd love to start off with looking at transition. When you go through changes, change is good. So I call this thing where you're both excited and terrified at the same time, and you want that equal balance of excited and terrified. So excitified, but it's as much as you are excitified, it is actually tough to maintain your mental fitness going through it. And when I think about when we all started, it was like everyone used to say drinking from the fire hose. I remember our induction period used to feel like that. And then now 10 months later, it's like you can't forget, you've forgotten how tough that period was. So Erin, I wanted to kind of start with you. How was it kind of enjoying that excitified period and still maintaining your mental fitness?
Oh, that's a good question. And I'll be the first to say that I often put myself last. Something I'm trying to work on, but I have 2 small kids at home. And so work drinks up a lot of my cup. They drink up the rest of my cup. And at the end of the day, I usually don't have as much time for myself as I wish. So I try to get ahead of it and be as proactive as I can about putting things in place that I know are going to keep me accountable. Starting here was interesting because I felt like it was that weird sense of you're not super busy, but you're going to be super busy in the near future. And so I was trying to just preserve as much energy as I could and be okay with the stillness that I felt in the first few weeks of onboarding, knowing that ultimately things would pick up. And of course they did. So yeah, I feel like for me, it's recognizing when there's moments of quiet or when things don't feel busy, to not immediately look to fill my plate with things to do, because that's my tendency, but to just be like, all right, this is a moment of not busyness, and I'm gonna take it as a time to recharge, because I know things are gonna ramp up again really fast. And that's what happened. Right. Things got busy.
Yeah. I definitely remember that doing our induction is like, you're kind of chomping at the bit and you're like, okay, let me get into it. And then I remember in AE, his name was Chuck, and he was like, don't worry, you're going to have enough time to prove yourself. Just got to take this period and then try and enjoy it for what it is.
So true.
Something you said about when you have kids where, they drink up your cup, and what are the things you've put in place to try and make sure that you still remember to fill up your cup as well?
Yeah. So I say this at the risk of sounding like I realize it's a privilege to be able to do this, but they're both in daycare 4 days a week, which after COVID was like such a blessing that I feel so glad to have, because they were home, right? So they're in daycare 4 days a week. And so the days that they're in daycare, I try to actually block in time during my day, like 30 minutes to breathe or go for a walk or take a walking meeting.
Yeah.
I think I had a lot of guilt initially about sending them to daycare, because I'm like, well, I work from home. I should be able to have them home with like a family member to watch. And I realized that for my own well-being, that was just way too stressful and not
Yeah.
sustainable. And then I try to maximize the time when I'm with them. So, dinner time, for instance, is a really important ritual in our house, and I get them to help me with dinner prep, and I'll listen. They need me to be in their rooms while they fall asleep, and so as they're falling asleep after we're done doing stories, I'll pop my AirPods in and listen to an uplifting podcast or an audiobook, like spending time with them, but also doing something for myself.
Okay. I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Pre-booking time for yourself as well, so that you remember to fill your cup up. Brian, I'm gonna go to you as how do you maintain your mental fitness when we went through that transitions?
Yeah. Yeah, a few things that come to mind. I think the first is, right, like I took for granted the amount of unlearning that accompanied the learning that I was taking on as I was working at BetterUp, right? And so like, because I would say BetterUp is probably, out of all the places I've worked, and I've been fortunate to work at tons of different organizations at different levels, I would say it has the most like forward and innovative thinking of how they're trying to approach the culture that they're trying to build. Also very rigorous. And so because I really appreciate what they've built, and I'm leaning into it, but I didn't realize like how much like baggage or just things that I've learned at previous organizations, whether it be around like proving yourself, right, or just like
Yeah.
showing up, and just things that I had to shed that were no longer going to be useful in this new environment. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so there was a significant amount of unlearning that came with this transition, that like I'm still like shedding stuff, right? I would say the second part is like, you spoke about, like, I think you just mentioned about like proving yourself, right? And like somebody like telling you to like slow down, like that is still something for me that is like, I'm trying to get out of like prove myself mode, right? Because like when you're like in this proving self, like trying to like prove yourself, I don't know if I'm even saying that the right way. You're like trying to convince others. And when you're trying to convince others, you're trying to convince yourself. And oftentimes you're not like showing up as your most authentic and confident version of yourself. You're showing up as like, and so like, there's times where like the relationships that I'm really starting to meet with, like with my manager, and the most authentic relationships that I have are the places where I'm feeling the most confident, and those are the times where I'm not in that moment of like, I'm trying to show value, and I'm trying to like show like, like
Yeah.
put this thing forward. And so that's been a lot of what my transition is like, and some of the things that I've been learning, and how I'm just trying to create like a mentally healthier and fitter space in like my mind.
I love that point you just said, Brian. Like that for me as well was the thing I worked with my coach for the first 6 months, and still working with, where I didn't realize how much baggage I carried from my previous corporate role, where I expected, okay, now you're in a job, this is the way you show up, or when you talk in meetings, you're supposed to sound like this. And you could really tell it wasn't going to work here at Better Up, because you kind of had to show up in your authentic self. Otherwise, you just, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a great example where if you're getting up and just feeling like, oh God, I want to sound smart, or I want to show that I'm adding value, it just doesn't come across right. And every time when I try and come into meetings, I'm trying to like make sure that, have I left the baggage behind? And it was actually like something Chuck said when he said that, is like, you don't need to prove yourself to us that you're smart. We already know that. That's why we hired you. Just try and be yourself. So it's, when I show up on calls, client calls, and he's like, I'm bringing you on here to just be yourself and just start talking. And that's a hard one, where you think like, God, I just need to just be myself and just talk. I spent 20 years of your career trying to like show that you're this smart person and you know this and you know that. And that switch in the brain is, it's quite tough.
Yeah.
I can relate to that so much too, when you were saying that, because I feel like the way that I equated it to like some friends of mine when I was starting is, it's almost like, especially if you've been at a company previous, if you're changing to a new job and you were at a company previously, it's almost like being at a school where like, you know, everyone knows you, they know your story, like it's your clique, right? And then you're the new kid at school and no one knows you, no one knows your stats, no one knows like what you bring to the table besides that you're there. And then you add the layer of it on top of it, which is the fact that Better Up hires incredible people. And so everyone you meet is just smarter and smarter and smarter. And there's this real sense of, you know, where do I fit in here? How can I show them my stats? But like, you're right, you don't need to. You're not made to feel that way here. But for me, it's that like imposter syndrome voice that sometimes pops up.
And the point you just mentioned about stats, because like everyone you meet here is like, you meet people who've written books, you meet people who do podcasts, they do so many great things that you're like, oh, what do I do? What do I bring to the table? And it's getting into that mindset that you were hired for a reason, and just try and just be yourself. And the more you be yourself, actually what I love about, since I've been working here, is learning so much more about myself. Like when you come into calls and you show up as your authentic self and you share your stories, which I never used to do that when I was, well, definitely not in work calls. I didn't come and share so much about myself. But when I do that, the response that you get back, you're like, oh, wow, people are actually interested in that and they want to hear about that. And I don't know if you guys are finding that as well.
No, absolutely. I would say like sometimes like part of transitions, right? And you're talking about like being a new kid, right? It's like you let go like from your previous employer, like your previous employer, like all that social capital you built, right? Like, and just knowing the unwritten rules of work and culture and just being able to navigate that so swimmingly, right? And going to a new place, like you're having to rebuild all of that, right? And that can be very taunting, but like when you're at a place, right? And when you have people that high, and I know this sounds like we're just like putting out a Better Up ad. So like, I mean, like I'm gonna say some more positive stuff about Better Up. I genuinely mean it. So if people are listening, like, dude, come work here. But like when you work at a place that does a very good job of recruiting high EQ and high IQ, like you don't have like you don't have to like worry about like rebuilding that social capital. I think it's good to be strategical about it, right? But like when people are genuinely interested and there's just such a like beautiful flow exchanging of ideas and experiences and like showing up authentically, like you by design will organically just fit and fall where you're supposed to be, like in a way that like doesn't have to feel intentional like that. I would say previous places I worked, like I had to really like carve that out for myself. You know what I mean? And really like build that and like present it in a way and brand yourself, right? Like, you know, when you first join corporate America, like here's like personal branding 101, right? Because they're like teaching you to like, this is how you need to present yourself. But like this transition has really been like just kind of fitting in really seamlessly because of that exchange of ideas and how we've connected. And I don't know, man, like I really feel that. So sorry for that tangent, but I felt you on that.
I love that point you made, because I always remember when I used to start a new job, especially when I was a consultant in banking, you go in and you kind of like the first 6 months, you kind of have to work out, what the hell do I do here? You've got all that imposter syndrome, and you're hoping by 6 months you've met with enough people to start carving out that social capital you're talking about. And then you kind of live off that. for the rest of that period. Whereas here, the one thing that really blew me away was the coffee chats, because I used to be like, coffee, like, is that part of work? Am I really learning something? But the more I kept having the coffee chats, and you start to realize I was learning so much about people, and then just by them being so authentic, I was being authentic, and then I was learning more about myself. And I found that that's something a Better Up that's been huge in not having to feel like you have to carve out that kind of, I don't know, structure and background. And you learn more about yourself, you learn more about the people, and that's how you kind of start building, your knowledge about the place. It does sound like we're really promoting Better Up here, aren't we? It is a great place, but we just share our experiences.
I feel like that concept though, coffee chats can be applied anywhere. And especially in the era of remote work, it's so, I feel like I can't even tell. Have you all had the chance to meet people in person yet? To go to any like team events or offsites?
We did, yeah. We met in Ann Arbor.
Oh, the feeling of being in like a physical space with people is just, I don't know. I feel like it's just so meaningful. And a lot of times it was someone who I just randomly had a coffee chat, but seeing them in person, that connection felt so much deeper. Cause like now I know a little more about you, and we've had the chance to connect and just bounce ideas off of each other. And my gosh, that's like my high for this year, is just, the 2 opportunities I've had to meet people in person.
Yeah. And
So go on, you go.
okay. I was just gonna say is, Aaron, you bring up such a good point, because like we really take for granted when we transitioned, right? Like we started new jobs in a very hybrid work environment, and just a new environment, a new approach to work, a new approach to building culture. And there's never been like a time in, like, I feel like at least in history or in my lifetime, right, where you've had to be so intentional about how you build community and like build connection and build relationships.
True.
And it's you have to be more intentional, like now, more than ever now, like meeting somebody for the first time. Like it's such like, you never thought like you would feel that way about just like just seeing like a meeting, like dude, the 3 days that we had at our offsite in Ann Arbor, it was like magical. We were like we were texting, people were talking about it like a week and a half after. But it's just like, that is a true testament of when we transitioned, and what does it mean to like transition now from a different environment or just different time in your life, or move to a new city or whatever. It means something totally different now than what it did previously.
I totally agree with you in that. When we transitioned, me and Brian met for the first time, and we did an offsite in DC. But that was a point where we were just coming out of the pandemic, and we weren't sure where we were. And because I recently went back to the DC office, and the place was packed, like the roads are packed, and I was like, oh, okay, we're in a new space now. But when we met in Ann Arbor, I've never been a hugger, but I kept hugging everywhere, because it was just so much more of it was so much more of a meaningful experience, where I've had coffee chats with you guys for a year. I've had to like do loads of different projects with you guys. I've learned more about you guys. So now I'm going to hug you. Whether I didn't even ask whether it's okay to hug, I was just like, I'm gonna hug you. And it just meant so much different. And I was still buzzing from that 3 days spent with everyone, even up to now.
Yeah. That's good.
Great place, bro. Our experiences.
I feel like that concept though, coffee chats can be applied anywhere. And especially in the era of remote work, it's so, I feel like I can't even tell. Have you all had the chance to meet people in person yet? To go to any like team events or offsites?
We did, yeah. We met in Ann Arbor.
Oh, the feeling of being in like a physical space with people is just, I don't know. I feel like it's just so meaningful. And a lot of times it was someone who I just randomly had a coffee chat, but seeing them in person, that connection felt so much deeper. Cause like now I know a little more about you, and we've had the chance to connect and just bounce ideas off of each other. And my gosh, that's like my high for this year, is just, the 2 opportunities I've had to meet people in person.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Go, you go.
Okay. I was just gonna say is, Aaron, you bring up such a good point, because like we really take for granted when we transitioned, right? Like we started new jobs in a very hybrid work environment, and just a new environment, a new approach to work, a new approach to building culture. And there's never been like a time in, like, I feel like at least in history or in my lifetime, right, where you've had to be so intentional about how you build community and like build connection and build relationships. And
True.
you have to be more intentional like now, more than ever now, like meeting somebody for the first time. Like it's such like, you never thought like you would feel that way about just like just seeing like a meeting, like dude, the 3 days that we had at our offsite in Ann Arbor, it was like magical. We were like we were texting, people were talking about it like a week and a half after, but it's
Yeah.
just like that is a true testament of when we transitioned and what does it mean to like transition now from a different environment or just different time in your life or move to a new city or whatever. It
Mm.
means something totally different now than what it did previously.
I totally agree with you in that. When we transitioned, me and Brian met for the first time, and we did an offsite in DC. But that was a point where we were just coming out of the pandemic, and we weren't sure where we were. And because I recently went back to the DC office, and the place was packed, like the roads are packed, and I was like, oh, okay, we're in a new space now. But when we met in Ann Arbor, I've never been a hugger, but I kept well, like I kept hugging everyone because it was just so much more of a it was so
Yeah.
much more of a meaningful experience where I've had coffee chats with you guys for a year. I've had to like do loads of different projects with you guys. I've learned more about you guys. So now I'm going to hug you. Whether I didn't even ask whether it's okay to hug. I was just like, I'm going to hug you. And it just meant so much different. And I was still
That's
buzzing
funny.
from that 3 days spent with everyone, even up to now. Yeah, Erin, I think you're bringing with stuff to say.
Yeah, no, I'm like feeling that energy, right? I'm thinking one, we need a 10-12 in-person meetup
Yeah, we do actually.
for our 1 year anniversary. But yeah, I'm reflecting on I had the chance to go with our labs team and my team and our studios team down to Asheville, North Carolina. And it was part strategic planning, part just team building, and part random excursions. And oh my gosh, just so many memories created that even to this day I think about and smile. And
Yeah.
says something for the physical connection and just importance of like being in a room and feeling the energy of people that are in it.
Maybe the
Sure.
pandemic has made us realize the importance of human connection. Because if I'm honest, I probably used to take things like that for granted. Like if you were going for work, do like that, it wasn't that a big deal. But now you appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah, I do. I feel like it is one of the silver linings. Like, I feel like there are a few things that have come out of the pandemic that I would never wish the pandemic again, obviously,
Yeah,
that goes without
right.
saying. But, I think parenting out of the shadows is another one where I had kids before the pandemic, but I rarely talked about them in the work setting. And then the pandemic hit, and it's like, well, they're on your Zoom calls, they're in your living room, and you're just connecting with people in a different way around that.
That's beautiful.
I feel like that's another thing that's happened. And then too, just the value of in-person connection and gratitude when you can have it in a way that everyone leaves healthy and, is able to maintain their health.
Jennifer, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
To both of you, if we start over like the 10-12 and you get a whole new chance, knowing what you know now, to like just to have a fresh start at BetterUp and everything, do you guys do anything differently? Like, or what would you change about just kind of like your approach?
That's a great question, Brian. Well, now they're doing the orientations in person, so I actually wish I could leave and come back and start again.
Yeah,
I saw one of the places they're doing it at. Chaitra sent the picture, and I was like, "Oh, I'd love to have been there."
Yeah.
What I would do differently is, well, sorry, actually, I'm jumping in first. Erin, please let me.
No, that's okay. I was smiling because I actually had the chance to go down to Campus Day last month.
Oh, you did?
It's amazing. Yeah, I helped create the new hire program, like the new orientation.
Yeah.
So I got to go down and be a guest. It's so nice. I'm like,
That's
oh
great.
man, we missed it by whatever.
Yeah.
I think like building on something we said, I think I came in really ready to prove myself because I felt like I had to. And I think in hindsight, a lot of that, as my walls came down a bit, that's when I was able to do my most authentic work here. So I feel like if I was starting over, I would have been honest with myself in the beginning and like embodied more self-compassion to say, you're enough, you've made it. Like just show up and don't feel like you have to, come in guns blazing, ready to prove yourself. They'll like you for who you are. I learned that, you know, a month or two in.
1000%.
That's a great one.
1000%.
Brian, do you want to go? Or do you-
No, I honestly, I came in guns blazing, and I was like, I look back, I'm like, it's cool, V. You could have just like took your time, spent time learning. Like it's all good. Like people will like you. So
Yeah.
I feel that, and I probably would have worried less. Just
Okay.
in general.
My one, actually, I had a coffee chat with Madison in our team, and I asked her what she had just started. She was probably 3 weeks ahead of us, or 4 weeks. And I said, what would you, if you went back in my position, what would you do? And she said exactly that. I wouldn't focus so much on proving myself, and I'll try and enjoy it more. So I decided I focused a lot on the coffee chats, but looking back, I didn't let go of my baggage as much as I'd like. It took me a while to let go of the baggage. So if I would go back, I would try to do more of the coffee chats and try and let go of the baggage a bit earlier, and just say, just keep being yourself. Don't try and prove yourself, I suppose, in a way. So
Yeah.
even with advice, it was still tough.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Guys, we kind of run out of time, but this was amazing. Thank you so much for giving up your time to share.
Of course.
And I'd love for us to do more of this. Definitely, I think one idea that I've taken from this is a 1-year reunion for all of us meeting in person. Could be something we could like share with the group.
Maybe we could go to Camp Lucy.
That would be great.
That's a brilliant idea.
Let's see. Let's see.
Yeah, we could propose it to HR and be like, hey, for people hitting their 1-year anniversary, can we just do like
Yeah.
I don't know, just some type of session. I think it's a good time to do a 1-year session with people as well. So I mean, we could
Yeah.
like make some type of thing out of it.
All right.
I'm going to propose that.
Okay. We'll
It was
do
so
that.
good seeing both of you.
Good seeing you, Aaron. Good
Thanks
seeing
for
you, gentlemen.
organizing
You guys. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.